Beyond the school setting anime knows so well lies Shirobako. PA Works' 2014 show explores the lives of 5 friends joined through an animation club who have moved to Tokyo to pursue careers in the industry. On the surface, Shirobako is an almost documentary-esque exploration of its medium. Soon you realise it strives for more still, ultimately to tackle the questions of what happiness and fulfilment look like in young adulthood, the place where dreams meet reality. Shirobako could very easily have shot itself in the foot by providing a whitewashed vision of its world. Instead, it opts not to brush over Japan's often horrendous working standards. This is an industry where health falls by the wayside in favour of utterly inhumane hours, workloads and stress levels. Because Shirobako shows its hand from the very beginning, we don't have to question the show's intentions, and are much more comfortable accepting its highs without wondering whether it is ultimately contributing to a false narrative. For a show that focuses overwhelmingly on the daily struggles of adapting to a new job, Shirobako is so enjoyable. Each episode has its own subtle arc and lesson, ones I could greatly appreciate as a working young adult going through exactly the same growing pains as our characters. The series strikes gold with its unassuming lead, Aoi Miyamori, a humble production assistant at Musashi no Animation, Musani for short. You'd be forgiven for not knowing what that means exactly. Director, animator, voice actor, these roles are all easy to grasp by their name alone, more readily associated with the medium and thus surely the obvious focus of a series like this. Instead, Shirobako throws us headfirst into perhaps the most unglamorous and unsung role anime has to offer. The production desk are the gears of their companies. They schedule, delegate work in and out of house through a network of connections, resolve the issues and disputes that inevitably constantly arise, and generally see to it that the masses of material generated throughout production keep moving along the conveyor belt. Without the production desk, any anime would collapse like a poorly constructed building, prematurely and catastrophically. From the second episode, we're presented with the most mundane of the realities that come with any workplace: conflict. Miyamori's role is often that of the mediator. It could be the hurt pride of a member of staff over having to outsource work to their rival to make up time, the clash between a traditional and 3D animator over which should be used for a certain scene, or an animation director's dissatisfaction with the staff assigned to their episode. These clashes are awkward and painful, and Miyamori is often the unintentional punching bag for everyone's frustrations. Miyamori's group of high school friends schedule monthly get-togethers which bookend the working days. Shizuka Sakaki, the aspiring voice actress, struggles more than any other member of the group to get her career off the ground, and openly envies the stressful jobs they complain about. The grass is always greener. Each of them quickly learns the things that made them stand out as teenagers are a dime for a dozen now that they've made it into an industry brimming with others just like them. They now face an ever-shifting kaleidoscope of wants and needs, a seemingly endless climb upwards, with each achievement bringing new realizations and questions. As she listens to her friends, Miyamori begins to wonder what comes next, now that she's living the life she once dreamed of. As we stumble ever unprepared into adulthood, dreams quickly fall away in the face of the simple need to make a living. Like this, people go through 1, then 10, then 30 years on autopilot, the luxury of wondering whether they truly enjoy what they do left far behind. From day to day, the characters of Shirobako are far too busy worrying about the things all young people entering the workforce face today: the death of a craft in the face of advancing technology, an oversaturated hiring pool, the overwhelming feeling that you are utterly expendable. Shizuka mentions that 120 people might audition for one anime role. How many of us could stand the kind of rejection that line of work must entail, and the knowledge that you can be the best there is and it still doesn't guarantee you anything? How then can newbies ever hope to compete against the household names going for the very same parts? It's a suffocating, terrifying, miserable concept. Shirobako doesn't shy away from this strife, surely found all over the industry. Episode 5 houses the aforementioned dispute over whether to use key animation or CGI for a special effects scene. Only once the characters in question realised they were inspired to enter the industry by the same anime did they stop seeing one another as enemies. This evolves into a relationship where they're willing to learn from and praise one another's work. Shirobako's repeated willingness to show there is still a space for the childish wonder that brought its characters to where they are is one of the most beautiful and emotive elements of its narrative. We often see our characters torn between their youth and adulthood. This is most notably symbolised by Miyamori's ever-present mascot toys who give voice to her inner conflicts. As children, we're often asked what we want to do as adults. Enough to trick us into thinking people invariably work the jobs they do out of passion. Indeed, that they work because they want to. Nobody wants to sit a 5-year-old down and tell them that one day they'll have to worry about how to put food on the table. Shirobako doesn't shy away from the question of whether anyone should have to work a 9 to 5, let alone whatever the anime equivalent is. And older members of the cast in particular are portrayed varyingly as alcoholics, burned out, or depressed. Even so, most are still filled with a genuine adoration for the medium. Throughout the series, we're given vignettes. Why did you decide to work in anime? Over Shirobako's runtime, we see characters leave not only Musani but the industry as a whole, as others cycle in. We are reminded that those who remain have their reasons, their inexplicable relationship with this line of work that nobody else will ever truly understand. It's rarely a case of simply liking it or not. It is to Shirobako's credit that it doesn't take the easy way out by focusing purely on those who have the kind of endless enthusiasm for their craft that we romanticize. As the months cycle by, our characters begin to lose sight of the feelings that had propelled them into this industry alarmingly quickly. Shizuka, working part-time as a bartender-server while she looks for acting gigs, has it pointed out to her by her old mentor that even here she is learning skills that will help her as an actress. In this simple interaction, Shizuka is reminded of her ultimate goal, a gentle push in the right direction. Anyone who has aspired to work in a certain industry has likely come to learn at some point how vague this milestone actually is. Oh, you want to be a doctor? Was that a neurosurgeon or an anesthesiologist? Here, Shirobako gives us one of its many invaluable hints. The trick is to not get caught looking for the dream job but never taking a single other opportunity. Our characters stumble over the pitfalls of worrying about what this ideal would look like, but never fall, taking bold step after bold step forwards, doing what they can. As young people, they have the gift of time, and can afford to spend a year here or there on whatever random job comes their way. The important thing is that they keep thinking about what it is they do want, a quest that will surely be aided by each and every one of these experiences. Episode 7 sees Miyamori's sister come to visit during time off from work in her hometown, where she still lives with their parents. Despite not being that much older than her sister, we see Kaori has already become worn down by a job she hates. Life is quickly turning grey. Meanwhile, we spend some time with another member of our group. Misa Todo works at a 3D graphics company who model almost exclusively cars. She stares down the decision to leave her current place of employment, a reputable company with a great benefits package, in search of more stimulating work. When she talks to her co-workers, they admit the job is dull, but that those benefits make it more than enough for them. This brought me back to a conversation with a friend, back when I was still a teenager. I told her that I didn't mind if I had to live somewhere small, suffer a lack of free time or money if I was able to do the job I wanted. Her response was that she fully expected to do a job she hated that paid well, so that she could one day buy a house and have a family. We simply had different goals. Even so, I could hear frustration seeping through her words. The unspoken implication was that I was naive. forever thinking I could enjoy my job, or perhaps that I'd be fulfilled by such a seemingly simple goal, especially unconventional for a woman. Honestly, I think her response was prompted by envy. I had actually found something I wanted to do, something I am pursuing to this day. I know she still struggles with a lack of direction. Shirobako asks us this: is it okay not to have an ultimate goal? As all this goes on, Exodus, Musani's first major project in years, nears the end of its runtime, and crunch really begins to kick in. The director, Seiichi Kinoshita, struggles under the weight of writer's block, at a loss as to what to do for the final episode. When he finally does conjure up a hugely ambitious ending at the last possible minute, the weight of making his artistic vision a reality comes down on Miyamori. In demystifying the anime production process, Shirobako makes it somehow more magical. We see that every part of these shows we love are made by real people, deeply passionate about and dedicated to their own fields. With the larger-than-life vision for Exodus's final episode, Musani calls for all hands on deck, and then some. It's the end of the season, everyone is all booked up, and Miyamori has to squeeze contacts out of everybody she knows just to scrape by. In an absurdly hilarious segment, she even finds herself asking Mitsuaki Kano of Neon Generation Avant-Garden fame whether he'll draw some keyframes for them. Mitsuaki Kano informs Miyamori that they already have someone at their very own studio who's perfect for the job. Shigeru Sugiya is a quiet, elderly animator who barely takes work anymore by virtue of possessing an artistic style incongruent with current trends, and who Musani appear to keep on their payroll purely out of a sense of obligation. What most of his young co-workers do not know is that he is an expert at drawing animals. Thanks to his guidance, Exodus is able to wrap up successfully with the director's vision intact. At the end of it all, in a scene that never fails to get me teary-eyed, he confides in Miyamori how happy he is that there's still a place for him in an industry that he thought had left him behind. In a truly serendipitous moment, she also finds out that he had worked on the very anime that inspired her to join the industry growing up. Here we see one of the most beautiful things about anime, the osmosis of talent, and the ability for people to work side by side with those they once idolized.
So いうことで、今年は未来に向かって大きく飛行。テイクオフ!
For Shirobako's second half, Musani bagged the rights to adapt a popular manga series, Third Aerial Girls Squad. By now, beyond our main five, we're comfortably familiar with the many faces that make up Musani, and can even take a mental stroll through its corridors. Precious entire scenes are dedicated to minor characters, and more is achieved in developing them in a single conversation than some series would manage in their entire run. It's a true feat that the show avoids feeling overpopulated, and rather evokes a resounding realism through this choice. The feeling that this vibrant building is filled with people each living a wholly independent, wholly complex life of their own. The turn of the season brings a small company-wide hiring surge, and it provides a moment of reflection when the production newbies remark that they can't believe Miyamori ever made mistakes like theirs. One of the fresh hires, Daisuke Hiraoka, proves troublesome to integrate into the team, and conflicts begin to spring up around him almost immediately. And yet, rather than Miyamori's efforts at reconciliation, it turns out to be the overly friendly nature of fellow production assistant Taro Takanashi that saves the day. It's Taro's brash communication style that proves the key to smoothing things over after a genuine fight erupts between Hiraoka and another member of staff. In the first half of the show, Taro is the source of endless trouble for Miyamori, but here we can't help but be grateful for his utter lack of regard for anyone else's feelings. The meeting of two people who would never have spoken in any other context proves essential. Shirobako never fails to highlight this shared goal, something else unique to anime. Whatever their reasons for doing the job, Every person at Musani and beyond is coming together to create a single end product. It's this synergy that makes them so powerful. Musani itself has a mixed reputation after a past production fell apart. This mark on their record left them struggling for years. Even so, the staff hardly seem bothered by the fact that they don't work for a more illustrious company, and take genuine pride in what they make. As we've seen by now, Musani houses more than one master of their craft. As someone who until recently attended a university with an underwhelming reputation, this really resonated with me. When I found out this would be the case, it seemed almost like the end of the world. And yet when I got there, I found a swathe of hugely accomplished, passionate and inspiring staff, who surely could have gotten jobs at institutions that might have looked better on paper had they chosen to care about such things. I couldn't help but be deeply grateful to them for believing unwaveringly in us students, who were every bit as ambitious and invested as our peers anywhere else. I was even warned that the mere name of the university I attended would harm my chances of advancing, only to secure a place on one of the most prestigious postgraduate programs in my field. The lesson: hard work and self-belief trump all. As we near the end of Shirobako's runtime, Miyamori struggles under the weight of her first ever production manager role. Ever observant company president and agony uncle Masato Marukawa intervenes under the guise of taking her on an errand, and they find themselves at the old Musashino Pictures studio, now defunct and used as storage. Musani had been one of multiple splinter companies that had formed when the studio closed. Miyamori, never having realized the two were related, comes to discover Marukawa himself, much like Sugie-san, was a member of staff on her favorite anime, Mountain Hedgehog Andy's Chucky. Specifically, he was a production assistant. As Miyamori muses that such an accomplished work surely never went through all the ups and downs they're currently experiencing, Marukawa tells her this is patently untrue. Shirobako constantly topples its idols from their pedestals, in an effort to remind us that we can absolutely achieve everything they have and more. Perhaps the closest to her ideal of our five, Emma Yasuhara also works at Musani as an animator, and yet she struggles throughout the series with imposter syndrome. One of the most surprising things about becoming a working adult is the amount of responsibility you're often given from the get-go. It's easy to feel in over your head, and she fights constantly against recommendations that she take on an important scene or a bigger role, in fear of tarnishing the end product. In Emma's eyes, she lacks the natural genius of the animators who surround her, so they remind her, there's no such thing. At the least, genius won't get you anywhere if you stubbornly decide you no longer need to improve. One of Shirobako's most essential and strongly felt messages is this: in life, you need to be willing to mess up. It's easy to wince as we watch Emma get harshly berated for the quality of drawing she had worked endlessly on by Misato Segawa, a veteran animator who she strives to please. It takes time for her to pick herself back up, but the important thing is that she does in the end. The criticism actually helps her, and the eventual praise she receives tastes all the sweeter for being hard won. As the production of Third Aerial Girls Squad barrels towards its conclusion and the year draws to an end, it's time for Miyamori to answer the question that has plagued her for the entire series. Why is she here? And is it enough? By this point we know intimately both Miyamori's strengths as an individual and how absolutely essential she is to her team because of them, as we watch her shoulder everyone's hardships and conflicts and act continually as the bridge that holds it all together. Miyamori never does herself the disservice of stopping to think that perhaps she isn't every bit as important as the animators, voice actors, writers, or anyone else. Everything Musani produces is their work. All of their work. These fantastical stories are surely more human than their audiences will ever know. By now, 4 of our 5 main characters have found themselves jobs working on the very same anime, their dream and the joint goal they had all shared. All but for Shizuka, who landed an audition for 3rd Aerial Girls Squad and failed. When she finds out she's the sole member of her friend group who won't be part of the same production, it's a truly heart-wrenching moment. The distance between herself and her friends is ever growing, and she seems lost in their shadows as they advance forwards together. Little does she know that she missed the role by a hair's breadth, even gaining the director's recommendation, but ultimately failing to win the majority vote. This is all until, after a convoluted series of events, the final episode is amended at the last minute to feature the little sister of the character Shizuka had auditioned for.
Modoru. このすべてを守るために。ありがとう、アリアさん。今私、少しだけ夢に近づきました。
はい、ルーシーのシーン OK です。
ありがとうございました。
This scene is important not just because the final piece has fallen into place for Shizuka, but because it also has for Miyamori.
私にはやりたいことなんてない。これから見つけられるかどうかもわからない。でもみんながやりたいことがあるなら、それを援護することはできる。
I never expected this show, billed simply as a candid look into life in the anime industry, to make me cry my eyes out the way it did far more than once. It's fair to say that Shirobako reminded me of how much I love anime, something that when I watched it I'd almost forgotten. For that reason alone, I knew I owed it a video from the moment I decided to make this channel. It's an absolute love letter to its medium. You may have noticed a few references to both real people and works, to which there is seemingly no end. Sakugaboru have a fantastic piece running through some of these that I'll link below. Moreover, some of the greatest problems Musani face in the show are adapted from true stories. The series stops just short of glorifying an industry that is all too regularly abusive to its workers, instead opting to depict the lowlights right alongside the highs. I feel an obligation to note Shirobako's decidedly light tone, but it would be patently unfair to call it unrealistic, or to say that it aims to paint the anime industry as the paradise it very decidedly is not. If anything, Shirobako celebrates the unconventional nature of an industry where you're defined by personal achievement, rather than the company you belong to. Indeed, the series is full of freelancers who are able to make a living wage thanks to the respectable reputation they've built for their work. Connections used to be a scary word to me, but since entering the working world, my most surprising discovery has been that of people's remarkable willingness to help you get where you need to be. My field is many worlds apart from that which Shirobako depicts, and yet whether it's a lecturer's willingness to hire me on a research project and teach me on the job, a judge going out of their way to introduce themselves to me at the courts I used to work at, or a seasoned co-worker offering to set me up with further experience, I've been continually warmed by other people's simple want to help someone whose position they were once in. Much like Miyamori, Emma, and everyone else, I used to wonder whether I should really have been given the level of responsibility that I was, only to learn just how essential this kind of experience is. Now I feel nothing but gratitude towards everyone who took a chance on me, and in doing so gave me the opportunity I needed to prove myself, and not only to them. The almost family-like relationship between the staff at Musani that shines through for a moment at a time could, in a different anime, feel false. Instead, it becomes an honest display of how raw and bonding the simple experience of working a fucking stressful job can be. As first pointed out by the Sakugaboru article, it's nice to think that the many playfully teasing depictions of countless real people in this show could not exist if those making it didn't have a close enough relationship with them to speak of them in such terms. Throughout Shirobako, we see each of our characters struggle, prevail, and win small victory after small victory, with half the stakes and double the emotional payoff of its louder companions in the medium. The show is a simple honouring of the small yet definitive moments that illuminate the path forwards.
"何をやるにしろ、この先の自分が具体的に思い描けないと始まらないだろ."
夢みたいなお話を作るには夢だけ見てちゃ作れないのさ。怖いのは脚本家になれないことです。
安原さんにしか描けない絵だ。いいね。
お母さん、私アニメーターで食べていけると思う。だからもう心配しないで。
人生って不思議だよな。ただ前に進んでるだけなのにいろんな出会いがあって、その度ごとに新しい世界が見えてくるんだ。俺さ、自分の進む先が最初から見えてたわけじゃないんだ。
別にすごくないよ。ただがむしゃらにひたすら前に進んでた。やりたいことをやり続けていた。そして気がつくとこの年になってた。それだけさ。
For us too, Shirobako tells of what lies beyond the final page, where so many anime end, and yet where life is only just beginning. In its utterly brilliant and utterly mundane cast, it shows us the absolute spectrum of what the future can hold. A future that never makes itself any more certain, and that is all the more meaningful for it. What an exciting future that is.
どうもありがとうございました。これからもよろしくお願いします。乾杯。